Welcome to the groundbreaking news program that delves into the heart of Mormonism, your weekly window into the unique intersection of news, history, and culture that resonates with the tapestry of Mormonism. So whether you're tuning in from the heart of Utah or joining us from around the world, your favorite news program starts now, where news meets insight and the stories of our faith unfold.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is like deja vu all over again. Yes, the newscast was just last night, 24 hours ago, but we know you can't get enough of us. This is our very special edition of kind of the newscast slash Mormonish, because this is our time slot slash Mormon discussions. Anyway, the gang's all here. That's what we'll say. It is Tuesday, December the 3rd, 2024. I'm once again joined by my newscast co-host, Radio Free Mormon. How are you this evening?
I'm fine. I have some breaking news, though. The aliens have just invaded.
Landon told me that. He was reading about that. Oh my gosh. All right, hold on. Let me introduce everybody and then we'll get to that. Bill, how are you doing this evening? Back again.
If I was any better, there'd be two of me.
Ooh, I love it. And you may recognize my other co-host. I'm the girl that has a million co-hosts from Mormonish. It's Landon. How are you tonight, Landon?
I'm doing great. Yep.
Yep. Wherever temple news is happening, Landon has to be there. So also he's the only one with a professional builder's background. So there are things that he comes in handy for, like reading schematics and understanding
You can stop there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, RFM, please tell us about the aliens. Actually, I should say up front, so this town meeting that we're here for tonight, this is the Fairview Town Council, and it's going to start in about half an hour. But we're here half an hour early just to do a little background commentary, some jokes, little tap dance, little puns, things like that. And then we'll check in with the meeting. It's not going to be the first thing on the agenda, but I've been told it's bumped up toward the top, and they'll be discussing the temple mediation, which is why we're all here. So, but before that,
I hope they have the chair screwed to the floor.
Oh, it's going to be interesting. I do think I have a couple people on the ground who might be able to tell us a little bit about what the mood is or things going on. But before that, yes, RFM, please tell us about these aliens. If you guys are all familiar with the Backyard Professor, our friend, Carrie Schertz, in the last month or so, he has been going crazy broadcasting about everything UFO, all kinds of aliens. The other day, RFM, I'm on my, sick bed, very susceptible to anything I read, sends me one of Carrie's videos. The aliens are landing and invading today. And now RFM is telling us it's happened.
Just in time for Christmas. It's like...
where are they? Where should we...
They've invaded. I don't know. And I'm sure that even if nobody sees them, it will have happened.
Well, we couldn't identify them. That was the problem. So
because okay, I get it. UFOs.
Did you have a role? I'm sorry, Landon. Did you have a role in that movie? It was a great movie, Harry and the Hendersons. Did you ever see that movie?
No, I'm growing it. The hair length is as long as this process has been going on in Fairview. So
that's right.
Really?
He's not going to shave or cut his hair until it's all resolved in Fairview, no matter what he looks like, no matter what comments we get. None of it. It doesn't faze him. He's in it for the long haul.
Can I just say,
that guy right there, right under the UFO?
I think.
You see it?
I think watching how his channel is doing, I think we all should be covering aliens and not Mormonism.
Over 200,000 views.
Pretty much. Views are going into outer space.
Yeah,
398,000 views.
He's gotten like 15,000 subscribers in 2 weeks. No, we talk about this all the time. Forget Mormonism. I think, Landon, you and I, Mormonish, let's turn it into a flat earth channel. That could work. I think that's a niche no one's touched yet.
It's a great idea. I think tonight's show may be the best evidence yet of Bigfoot. I mean, he's right here. We're having a conversation.
Right, there he is. That's right.
It's not AI,
I'm telling you, I always say, if somebody's over a certain age and they can even grow hair, I think that's a great step, right? That's what I say. I mean, men and women, right? It happens to women too. Your hair gets all wonky when you get older. It's not good.
And you know what they say about people with big feet. So,
okay. Now we're going to go there.
The question is, in the alien invasion, will Bigfoot fight for humanity?
I would pay to watch that. Bigfoot takes on the aliens.
I'm back in Bigfoot. I hope you got some friends.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be good. So, I mean, have you been following this? You've been following it. You have, Bill, because you were just talking about how many subscribers Carrie has now. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And he's showing footage. I mean, it's a huge niche. Like there are people all over that
Apparently
believe in this. You know, I don't know where I fall on the spectrum of that. When I was a kid, I very much believed, very much, you know.
What happened?
I don't know. I
grew
stopped
up.
believing in aliens. I stopped believing in the LDS Church.
It's called growing up.
Oh, I don't
When I
consider
was a
myself a
kid,
growing up.
when I was 7 years old in Longview, Texas, by the way, which is not very far from Texarkana, I think. Somebody, Adriel, was up there with a comment that she's in Texarkana. Anyway, reading a book. It was one of those books that has the photographs all. It's a paperback, right?
Right.
And in the middle, they have to put all the pictures in the middle for whatever reason when binding. And there are all these grainy black and white images of, UFOs and stuff like that. And I remember being seized with the absolute conviction that, no, this can't be true because the government says there are no UFOs and our government would never lie to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
when
had
did
to
you
grow up
lose
from
that
that one,
belief?
too.
Yeah. When did you lose that belief?
Along the way.
I was hardwired to believe in aliens. My mom was a huge conspiracy theorist. No moon landing, Area 51, the aliens are there. It's all real. So I was at Star Trek. I was raised on all that, kind of this weird combination of all these strange things.
Mormon.
Mormonism, Star Trek, aliens. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, do you want to set up what's going to be happening tonight so everybody will know what the heck we're going to tune into?
Yeah, I think we said we're at 6:30.
You want me to? I can try.
Yeah, at 6:30, we're going to tune into the council meeting is what we're going to do. And we have
That's
about
why
20
we got to
minutes.
set it up, right?
Well,
I think Bill has it. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if we wanted to talk it all about like the agenda they set out, and then I've got the link for it, so we'll be able to go live to it when it starts at 6:30. And then, did you want to play that other video?
Yeah, I was going to say that just literally like 15 minutes ago, somebody messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm on a business trip down there to Fairview. I brought my drone, as I guess a lot of people do on their business trips." And he goes, "I just wanted to make a little kind of shout out to Fairview." And I thought it was really good. I asked him if it was okay if I shared it on different sites and if we shared it tonight. And he said yes. So I think it's really nice. It's very well done. It's just some beautiful shots of Fairview and a little bit of commentary that kind of brings it all home. So yeah, let's show that.
We maybe before we start that should tell a little bit about what this meeting's for those people who aren't aware of what is happening here. You want to talk about
that? You can do it, Landon. Go ahead, Landon.
So basically, the church entered into mediation with the city with the town of Fairview about the temple height. As most people know, the town turned down their request for a building permit, saying it was too large, it was too tall, and surprisingly, the church actually came back with, as those who are following it might remember, that they came back and said, "Oh, we'll reduce the steeple 15 feet," and then they called that a significant concession, which was not a significant concession. So I don't think anyone had any hope of this mediation actually going anywhere. But the church actually came back with a revised, smaller temple. Instead of 45,000 square feet, it's now 30,000. Instead of 173 feet tall to the steeple, it's 120 foot tall. And instead of being two-story building that was 55 to 60 feet tall, it's now 35 feet, with some elements being 40 feet. So that is actually a significant change, especially the walls. The walls is the big thing. The steeple still, a lot of people in the town are still concerned about the steeple height being 120 feet. If you recall, during this, kind of the motto was not 1 inch higher, and the mayor kind of brings something back 65 feet tall, and they came back at 120. And so the town council in mediation agreed to accept this proposal. However, it still has to go through the same process. It has to go through planning and zoning. It has to go through the city council vote again. But they've kind of agreed that we could live with this. So tonight, they're going to meet and they're going to talk about the mediation. And I think the city council is taking some heat from the town people who are saying this is still too high. I think most people who look at this design say that steeple's really out of proportion, and it probably is too high. But we also have to keep in mind that the city council has access to something we don't. They have their lawyers who are telling them, advising them on, you might win this, you might not win that. And so, all through this process, the mayor has been crucial to making sure that he's keeping everything in line and organized. And we got to put some trust in these leaders that they know some things that we don't. And I think tonight their intent is to kind of explain it to the town and let the town people have their say in it.
And I'll just show the original McKinney Temple plan. This is what you're seeing on the screen. And Rebecca, you just showed or just released information that one of the newer temples announced after this temple, since this is no longer the plan for the McKinney Temple, for the Fairview Temple. They're calling it McKinney, not us. And this temple is now almost identical to the blueprint for another one.
For Federal Way. They just released it. And I'm like, that looks awfully like the former McKinney, Texas temple. So same dimensions, everything. And again, that's just something that the church submitted to the town of Federal Way. It's the Tacoma Temple in Federal Way. Of course, that town has pretty strict codes and ordinances. We'll see what happens there, but it's pretty much a dead ringer for this unused design. Maybe they're just recycling.
Yeah, and they're just as far out of code there as they are in Fairview.
Yeah. So this one was 173 feet tall. This here is the adaptation, which has the building part of the structure being significantly less, but now the steeple is a little different shape, and it draws attention to it itself in a little different way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's trying to fit into the surrounding environment by being shaped like a silo.
It is. It's a grain silo for
Do you
rural
think that looks like a
Texas.
silo, Rebecca?
Sure. Yes, I do. I'm sorry. Every time it flashes on the screen, oh my God, did I just say that? Every time it shows up on the screen, I just start to smile and I can't help it. It's like that Mary Tyler Moore episode where the clown dies and everybody's laughing and she's serious. And then she gets to the funeral and she cannot stop inappropriately laughing. This is what I'm doing. So I apologize.
Chuckles the clown.
It's the cold medicine.
A little song, a little dance, a little seltzer down your pants.
Remember during the previous meetings, the lawyer for the church got real upset about the fact that Fairview had an area for sex-related businesses.
Yes.
I guess they just had to have a place of their own.
Have the last word there.
And move it into their temple site, because that certainly looks like something that you'd see at a sex-related business.
Just aesthetically, though, the proportions, regardless of what it may remind you of or not, the proportions I feel are kind of off on that building. So I don't know. And maybe that's what they'll talk about tonight. Maybe there's some things that can be done. I know there are other buildings. This is similar to the Austin Temple, and it has some kind of a dome on it, like a metal dome, I think. So again, this is just a drawing. We don't know exactly what it'll look like. So
I'm not sure that this design is going far to put down rumors that Mormons practice orgies in their temple.
Yeah, I feel like little kids driving by will go, "Mommy, it's a," you know how kids are so honest. They're just so honest. Yeah, exactly. So
does anything need to be said to sort of set up this video? I know you said that somebody reached out to you not too long before the show.
Yeah, somebody just sent it to me, and they had filmed it on a business trip just today and wanted to just kind of make a little commentary and shout out to the town of Fairview.
We believe in being subject to kings, presidents, rulers, and magistrates, in obeying, honoring, and sustaining the law.
Is this at 120 feet too? Do you know, Rebecca?
It was filmed at 120, and this is the site right here where that temple that we just saw will possibly be built.
And that's the LDS Stake Center right there with a 65-foot steeple on it. So you can still see it's quite a bit, looking down on it, quite a bit higher.
Almost twice as high.
Yep. Anyway, I just thought that was great. I just love it how everybody is so passionate about all of these towns where the temple building is happening, and everybody contributes in their own way, whether it's sending somebody information or doing some commentary or making a post or creating a video. I just think it's great because all these towns mean something to all of us, I think is what I'm trying to say.
And I did share the link to that video in the comments now. So if somebody did want to be able to watch that again, or to share it to sort of explain the difference in height between what the church is willing to settle for, which is still quite a bit higher than anything else in that town, other than you saw that water tower way off in the distance, and that was about it.
Remember when they were making the argument, well, you have a water tower. Yeah. And we're like, well, yes, which we need for water. But the living water is more important than the water, right? That's how we're supposed to look at it. Well, to me, what's been really interesting is the reaction of other towns where they're building temples. And we talked a little bit about this on the newscast. But for example, in Vegas, second interview today from another news station that came in and wanted to ask Vegas, how do you feel? Will you get a mediation now? And also reporters calling quite a bit some of the residents in Cody. So people are starting to take notice. Look, there's a mediation here. What about over here? And then that's going to beg the question, why not over here? And that's, I think, when people might start digging into what are the differences between these towns and the whole scenario that played out, as the temple was being proposed and everything that happened, politically in the town. So what do you think, RFM?
If I can make an observation, this mediation did not happen because the city of Fairview said, let's mediate. It happened because the city of Fairview said no. And they stood up to them in a unanimous vote unequivocally. They stood up to them and said no. It was only after that happened, and who knows what else behind the scenes, but it was only after that happened that the church came to the table in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and I'll say this. The church has announced a ton of temples. President Nelson has gone on a temple announcing spree where many, I think the far majority of the temples that have been announced are ones that have not been constructed, correct? They've not been finished. And
167 left to go and 200 over the lifetime of the church completed. So you can see how it's announcing is increasing, but building is not.
Yeah. And the reason I say that is because the church, once it sort of gets through the local city government, town government, it's able to move forward, and anybody's going to have a hard time sort of fighting it after that. But the church has gotten maybe far enough in the process in a lot of these and announced so many that they might be able to go years, and we'll all sort of forget about it again until they go back onto another temple spree. And so it'll be interesting to see how they handle future ones that are left to work through this process now that everybody's had their eyes opened and everybody is going to have the ability, at least in many of these cases, to confront it very early on.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Although I do know that behind the scenes, there are things in the works, strategizing on how to increase temple building, how to streamline it, having conversations with architects and planners on how they could, instead of 6 to 8 temples a year, put out 20, 30, and when we interviewed Laura Lee Hall about this, she said, yeah, there's a huge bottleneck. And she's the former chief temple architect of the LDS church before she was excommunicated and no longer the architect. But she said their process has not changed. You can design as many as you want and announce as many as you want, but until you decentralize, is what she said, and it's come up with some way that there's just more of a massive, and Landon probably knows more about this than I do with the building, but I predict, since I've heard behind the scenes that this kind of stuff, this talk is out there, that they know that's a problem. And so I think we're going to see 20 towns at a time that are going through this process, that are going, hey, wait a minute, I think it's going to be everywhere and impossible to miss.
I feel like if they were being good stewards, they should take the chapel buildings and the stake centers that are having to be sold because people are leaving the church and not attending, and take those properties and convert them to temples.
Didn't you hear that when you were younger, that there would be, or maybe not, because
absolutely.
you were older, younger.
The one in Jerusalem.
Every street corner, there would be a small, there would be a smaller temple. And that was kind of what Hinckley was trying to do. The neighborhood temple that was small. Yeah. I heard that all of those buildings, and you're right, selling building one. Makes no sense.
I didn't hear that, but I heard the variation, which was that the stake center of the church building in Jerusalem is structured in such a way that overnight they could convert it to a working temple, because it has to be there when Jesus comes again.
That's right. The work must go forward. So much work, so much. It'll be interesting. Were you going to say something, Landon, about construction?
No, I was more thinking, that the church is going to learn something from what's happening here at Fairview. First, I think this is the first time outside the Mormon corridor, or the Morador as we call it, where they're in a town that is not prominently LDS, and they're getting pushback. They got pushback in the other towns, but there's a large Mormon population in those other towns. The difference between Fairview and these other temples is they had inside people on all the other projects. They had, they'd bought off the city council in Vegas.
Allegedly.
They had members on the committees on all of the other temples that we've been seeing go through, that are there pushing it through. They did not have that in Fairview. And if anything, what I see is the church is going to learn from this, that before we announce where we're going to put a temple, we've got to have our insiders already in place and having them working for us on the inside, because that's what worked on these other temples in Cody, in Heber, in Vegas. And we see in Tacoma, where again, they just blow right through the codes there. Again, they're only allowed 55-foot tall structure, and maximum steeple height, religious icon can go 15 feet above that. So what's that, 70 feet tall that they can go? But one of the council members is LDS. So right away, you've got an insider working on your behalf. And I think you're going to see them start looking at where they're going to put temples, and they're going to try to get people on those boards before they even announce there's a temple going there.
And the reason you're saying that, I mean, it's not like it has no precedent with the Mormon city council member in Cody, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's getting to the point where Mormons are acting so badly that cities might be well advised to not hire any. Of course, would this be actually vote them into office?
Yes, it's voting.
Yes.
And I do have to say, and this is negative, but I do have to say that some of the other towns have contacted me to say, hey, we have somebody running for our planning and zoning board. Do you know if this person might be LDS? This is somebody who didn't know anything about the church or care prior to a year ago, but now they're in Cody or they're in Vegas and somebody's running, and they want to know who's going to be on their council, and is there an ulterior motive? And that's really unfortunate. That's not how it's supposed to work, right? It doesn't matter what religion you are when you're voted into a position. But
planning and zoning,
they do.
Yeah, planning and zoning is not you don't run
That's
for
appointed.
it.
Yeah, but like
appointed,
council,
and usually towns can't even fill those.
Right.
So all it takes is the LDS to say, hey, next time there's an opening, you go volunteer, and in many cases you're going to get on because you're the only one.
Yeah, I was thinking of the city planner too. They were asking us about new city planners in Cody. Is this person? And again, you don't even want to be that person that has to ask that. But I feel like if the church emphasizes this, pretty soon that song, I Hope They Call Me on a Mission, that the kids sing, it'll be, I hope they call me as a city planner, right? They're going to encourage kids to pursue those careers so that they can, they can help temple building going into the 22nd century.
Do we know from like Lori Lee Hall, which you've had conversations with recently, architect for the church, was made, what is the major architect involved in several, if not many of these temples, not the ones currently, but when she was
all the big ones like Provo, all of them. Yeah.
My question is, did she have any insider knowledge of, one thought I have is that there's a limited number of construction companies who build these temples, which is why you can only do 6 to 8.
Yep.
I have a hunch, knowing past history of Mormonism, that the church is very loyal to those companies who build the temples, that those are generally ran by people, would be my assumption, who have inside connections to the church and its leadership. That, in other words, it's you scratch my back, I scratch yours. And did Lori Lee Hall have any information regarding that?
She did tell one story, and she said, I was told to go out and check out this one particular company, and see what they might have to offer, because she was doing site selection, everything. And then, she'd look at all the different companies vying for this position, and then she'd choose one. And she did have somebody from upper leadership come back to her saying, why did you decide not to go with these guys? And the impression was sort of, maybe not so extreme, but there's sort of an expectation maybe that why don't you just go with the true and the trusted, the people that we know, But yeah, she definitely said the issue is centralization, what you just described, the same companies, the same everything. Now we know that recently some pieces of it, the little prefab temples, that happens in China, right? Some of the pieces, but the bigger ones, that's all right here. So she felt like decentralizing, which may mean, I don't know, what do you think that means, Landon? Like having a temple building crew in Europe or a crew, just spreading out the control.
What she meant, and the church has increased. I think they did 17 this year that they're going to dedicate.
And there's some remodels, so that kind of ups the number.
Some are remodels that take less, but what they mean by centralization is, one, the church has its own project managers within the church, its own temple building. And so you've only got so many project managers, so you can only run so many projects at a time. Of course, you can hire more project managers and bring them in and train them, but that takes several years to get someone to know your procedures and how you build and what you do. The other problem is, though, exactly what you said, is they like to use those same contractors. Almost anywhere you go, you can name one of the 5 contractors that's going to be building the temples. By decentralization, she means you've got to use a construction company that's in Panama if you build a temple there, not one out of Salt Lake. And that way you're using their contractors, their subcontractors, and you can build more temples because now you've got a bigger pool of contractors to draw from than you have just here in Salt Lake.
But don't these contractors, as I understand it, they adhere to very strict standards. Like they have to have, I think, like devotionals in the morning before they start work. They have to say they won't swear, drink, they won't draw graffiti on the it's a very, no wonder they go with the same trusted companies, because the people know what's expected. It's a very interesting process, I think. My person on the ground is telling me that the council members are coming in. So again, like I said to everybody, this will not be the first item on the agenda, but we might want to pop over and just see kind of how it's looking and see what's going on.
Right now that it's not showing anything. I just did refresh it about 30 seconds
ago.
Ago.
Then maybe my person on the ground, they haven't started to actually. Yeah, it is only training.
Can notify us of that just so I can make sure ours is working. I just saw their mouse is moving, by the way.
Okay.
They'll probably wait till they're seated.
Yeah, they probably will. So.
I'm going to circle it, but that's their mouse. I'm not doing that.
Okay. Yeah, at least that means something's happening, right?
Yeah.
I hear something.
December 3rd. Meeting of the town of Fairview. We are here. We have a quorum to start the meeting. It's about 7:30.
There they are.
So I would ask you first, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our U.S. and Texas flags.
Texas flag, everybody.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome in the 4th grade again.
That's right.
Flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God.
I don't know the Texas one.
You're not going to see that in a lot of states.
No.
Do you know what RFM, the Texas pledge?
I don't.
All right.
How are we doing sound wise? Can we pump our sound?
A patrolman.
Do you want me to do it?
Taking an oath of office this morning. We're going to do that this evening. And just so everybody knows, we're going to make some modifications to the agenda so we can get to, I know there's lots of folks want to have things to say. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through consent agenda, which shouldn't take very long. We're going to skip the reports from staff. We have 2 public hearings that I don't think will take very long, and it's only fair. There's some people here that came for that specifically. And then after that, then we're going and have the discussion, the workshop related to the temple. So that, and then we're going to our regular stuff after that's over. So let's, Chief, you want to bring?
Mayor, Council, tonight what we're going to do is have a ceremony to swear in Sergeant Ricardo Hernandez. Sergeant Hernandez has actually been serving in the role as sergeant already. But we have not been able to give the date that his family would attend, and you can see on all the first row that the family was able to make it tonight. So
I think there's a sweet spot with the volume where it's not fuzzy, but still able to hear. So Bill, I think is just going to have to play around with it.
Here comes the new sergeant.
Yeah, picked the right night to swear in, a big crowd.
Yeah.
And folks are still telling me the sound is a little bit too low, so I tried to turn his louder.
He's not talking into the microphone.
Nobody's at the microphone. I feel it's going to get better if they, yeah. This is just town business as they're waiting to get to the agenda item we're here for. So, and they'll be using their microphones for that, the council and the lectern there, or podium, which is at RFM. He's always quizzing me on that.
It's a lectern.
Thank you.
You stand on a podium.
Recent developments regarding case law and what they mean.
Yeah, I'll just say while this is going on, because this isn't.
Yeah, we can talk over this. This is fine.
I can even just mute this for just a moment, maybe. I'll just note there are. Let me do this differently. Sorry. There are lots of ways in which the church can make money off of temples by bringing in people who will be more loyal to the church. You increase, by increasing loyalty, you increase active tithe payers. If the church has a hand in the residential neighborhoods that go around temples often, if that's a true thing, I've heard that is truth, but I don't know that. If that's true, that's another way the church makes money. If the construction crews are the family and friends of top leaders of the church, then that's another possible way that the church essentially brings money into the pockets of people it wants to. And then when you look at just the land development, not just the properties, but anything else that goes into sort of picking the land, the houses come in, those are going to be nicer homes because Mormons can't wait to live next to a temple. All of us in our prime days of activity, we all sort of understood that it would have been really nice to live next to a temple. And so there are lots of ways in which I think money can be made by the church, by its subsidiaries, and by the friends and family of those who lead it. And there's no way we can even know, because the church would never even have an open conversation about what that process even looks like. So
No.
do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I have another. Oh, go ahead, RFM.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you did. Was it Landon? Did you say something?
Landon.
Okay. No, I totally agree with you. And everybody spends a lot of time trying to figure out exactly how this works. And I think we can guess. We have ideas, but nothing confirmed. I was going to say, people in the chat are asking, do we know anything about, is this flooded with LDS members again? Remember all the other meetings, wear your white shirt, show up to the meeting. I've asked my person on the ground. He says the lawyers are here from the church, but doesn't seem to be that membership number that we had before. So that's,
and why would they? Basically, why would they? Because the Mormons are fine with it, because the church has approved it, which means the prophet has approved it, which means God is A-okay with this. Yeah. So whatever they're told to do, they will do. If they feel this is what God wants, then why show up?
Yeah, and God
I was just realizing that this is a much different and smaller venue.
Yep.
In the last time, and then I remembered that the last time they weren't having it in the city council because there were going to be so many people, and they hired out this other place.
Yep, they had to rent it out, and all the fire and police and everything around it. And I was going to mention that, yes, prior to this meeting, God told them that nothing else would do but a 173-foot steeple. Remember that? And everybody had to get up in arms behind that. And now God has said, no, it looks like 120 will do. And so I guess that means you don't put on your white shirt for that. It's okay.
I think you guys are making a great point. It's the whole adage, right? When the prophet has spoken, the thinking is done. And so whatever the church says, that's what the members will do. If the church says you got to write emails and you got to put on a colored shirt and you got to show up and raise your voice, then that's what you do. And if the church says nope, we've made an agreement, as you pointed out, RFM, there's no need to go any further than that. So why would they care at this point?
Can I go out on a limb here and make a prediction? Okay,
do it.
Hearing no objection. I think we all understand that the fix is in, that they have reached their agreement, and that's the way it's going to go down. And that this is, of course, required by law to have citizens be able to comment. But this is just a dog and pony show. The mayor and the city council will take their lumps from the angry citizens, try and mollify them as best they can, and the temple will be built as agreed. That's my prediction.
That's what you think.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's hard to make an agreement and say, yeah, we can live with that, and then go back on it. They might be able to get some other concessions, some of the things that weren't answered, some of the concerns,
lighting,
traffic flow, lighting, the name of the temple, that kind of stuff they might be able to extract. I think it's going to be very hard to get them to change the height of the steeple. Although I think the best option at this point is for the LDS people to realize that it looks like a giant phallus and that it might behoove them to lower it and make it look more proportional, just to make it look more aesthetically pleasing. To me, I think that's the best option they have right now.
Yeah, but the voices of the residents need to be heard. Absolutely. And this is Texas. The voices have made a difference before. So I'm still optimistic that we may be able to lose some height on this. I'm happy about the walls. That's a huge win. The difference between 65 feet and 35 feet. But that spire, it still needs to be reduced.
Do you want to mention at all the, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to blow anything for you, but there's an interview that you have that's going to come out with someone who's next door. Did you want to mention that?
Yeah. He was the same person that I talked about who was mentioned in the Tribune article. And he does live right there. And as I read in the Tribune article, he said the same thing when we talked to him, which we'll air it at some point. And it was basically, a reasonable person would probably find this reasonable. We're closer than we were. Let's hear everybody out. So he didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say 120, no way. He wanted to start there and kind of see what else could happen. But you're right. He lives right there at ground zero. And as we read in the Tribune, and as he said in our interview, let's look at this. Let's hear everybody out. Let's be reasonable. So we'll hear this tonight. There are different opinions.
To under the law is all I'm saying.
Yeah. There are different opinions among the residents as you would expect, And this has been such a long battle, and scenario. Everybody has really heightened emotions about it. I mean, we all do, we all do who've been following it and watching it. And so, yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen tonight. I really have no idea.
I know this is a win for Fairview. They've went up against LDS Corp and they got LDS Corp to bow down one knee.
Yep.
That said, I can't get over it. There's a part of me that feels like somebody's got to have it's a lot of money, but somebody's got to take the church to the woodshed and just force them to test their legal argument to its logical end, which I think would fall on its face. And I think the church doesn't want to go there either. It's the reason why this finally came push to shove, and they're like, damn it, we couldn't bully these guys. We had to bow down. And so they did come to an agreement that was somewhere in the middle.
Can I say that I think in every zoning, every city, every county, there's tons and tons of zoning, right? And the zoning says what can and can't be built.
All right, so the next item on our agenda would be our citizens' comments.
Well,
this would be where any citizen wants to come up and address the council. We cannot respond at this point. And if you have comments about the temple, I would ask you maybe hold that because we're going to have a whole session on that if you want to. But if there's anything else or anybody wants to go up and speak to the council, please come forward. Let us know your name and your address.
This won't be the temple.
Anybody want to do that right now?
I want to point out while we're waiting for that, that as post-Mormons, we want to.
The temple. Sorry, it could be the temple.
I turned it down. I didn't mute it.
No, he told them to not address the temple till they got to the workshop.
Okay, perfect. All right, sorry.
So everybody's leaving.
Thank you.
You're going outside for a smoke.
But one thing we need to remember is that as post-Mormons, it's easy to say, "Oh, we want someone to take the church to court," but that's the town of Fairview does not exist to go against the Mormon Church. They're just trying to enforce their codes, and they want to use their tax money for what it's intended for, roads and schools and that kind of stuff, not fighting the Mormon Church. And so you're going to see that they're going to make concessions because they don't want to spend their entire budget fighting the church over a temple. And I suspect, looking at Cody and other things, if we remember that steeple height, that was one of the things in Cody that became a big contentious item, is to whether or not a steeple counts towards building height. Some people read the code and say, no, you can't count it towards the building height. And others read it and say, yes, it does count if it's part of the structure of the building. And then you get into that whole argument. I'm guessing that the city's attorneys were telling them, this is a fight that's a 50-50 and you're going to spend a lot of money and you may get nothing out of it. Why not take what you're getting with the lowered walls and take the steeple?
Yeah, and please understand that it's not that you're getting nothing out of it. It's that you are going to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars that this little city of Fairview doesn't have. They're going to have to hire in not just another attorney, but attorneys, basically a firm to go up against the church in this. And they're going to have to pay them all and their staff and everything. It'll be millions and millions of dollars, and that has to be taken into consideration. Is it fair? Well, I don't know if it's fair. Is it reality? Yes.
The only thing I would ask now is a lot of people, at least as far as I know, some people donated to the town of Fairview to cover legal costs of a court action that will not take place.
Hey, Bill, it's hard to hear you right now with that background speaking. And I know what you're saying is important.
Yeah. So let me just, and I just want to make sure I don't miss the main part of the meeting.
Right.
A lot of people donated to Fairview. Some people donated to Fairview at least to cover the legal cost of a potential legal proceeding, which isn't going to happen probably at this point. What happens to that? Does the town of Fairview send those back to who gave them, since they're not using it for the intended purpose? My hunch would be they just put it in the coffers and keep it. And that sort of seems unfortunate as well.
Yeah, no, if you read all the instructions for donating, it said that anything that was not used in the legal defense would go to, and then they listed a charity. Okay. But I don't know about that for sure, because now maybe none of the money will be needed. So I'm sure they'll address that at some point. But when you talk about that amount of money, and oh my gosh, my voice is going to go away. It's going to betray me. Keep in mind that the residents, individual people in Cody and Vegas, are paying this kind of money out of their pockets to keep this fight going, because both of their towns have said nope, and in fact joined up with the church in Cody. So we're talking about so much money, and we're talking about residents in Heber too, who put their own money out there, that level of money to hire exactly what RFM said, teams to go up against the church.
Yeah. And a lot of those groups are doing the work on their own. They're providing the information to the lawyers and doing the research for the lawyers.
They've all become paralegals, and very good, very smart.
Address?
Okay, let's check.
I'm just checking in to see what's going on.
Please check in.
Chief, you're not coming up, are you? Oh.
Someone in the comments said the funds are donated to local charity Friends of Fairview. That's where
Claudia
the funds
said,
go.
That's great.
Mike Smith, 1670 Ashcroft in Thompson Springs.
Hi, Mike.
And I was a previous board member of the HOA and all this. This all looks great to me.
Okay.
So I'm in support.
Thanks for saying that. Appreciate you coming tonight. Okay. Anybody else? All right. I'll close the public hearing.
Oh, there we go.
Council, anything else we need to talk about? You ready to vote? Anybody want to make a motion to approve this?
Oh, and I wanted to say that Nemo wishes everyone well. It's the middle of the night for him, but he said he'll watch it first thing in the morning.
Request.
They haven't invented alarm clocks yet in England.
He needs to sleep. He's a growing boy.
Ashley Foreman says your coverage of this has been inspiring, Radio Free Mormon. It is activism and social change, and it's most effective in compassionate form. Thank you all for being reasonable and relentless world changers. Wow, thank you, Ashley.
Enjoy your new garage, and welcome to Fairview.
Well,
Right, our second public hearing tonight has to do with billboards along US 75. Israel, you want to tell us about that?
Boring.
Billboards.
All right.
Mormon stories, billboards along the freeway.
What do you?
What I was saying earlier
Yeah.
was that it was about zoning, and we all know about zoning, I think. And those are the rules about what you can build in what areas and how high, which is of a special concern here, obviously. The fact is that there are zoning ordinances for a reason, but there are frequent exceptions granted by the city council or whatever the governing body is to those zoning requirements, and those are called variances. So it is very common for buildings to come in, ask for a variance from the zone, and the city council may or may not grant it, but they have the power to grant variances to the rules of zoning, right? Unfortunately, first off, fortunately, it's good that the city council can break the rules for certain people to allow variances, right? Unfortunately, it creates an area that is rife with the possibility of corruption.
Yeah, I think we saw that in Vegas.
I think you just saw it in the previous motion where some guy wanted his garage built, and it took everybody sort of approving that it was outside the rules and go ahead and build your garage, and congrats on your new garage. And
I'm glad you were watching that.
Yeah. Anyway,
I am. No, that's exactly what it is. Now, this is a rather extreme variance, but you know, it's a rather extreme building.
Yeah. RFM, you'd mentioned one of the things when we were discussing with you, why would you go to mediation as a town, and why would you want to mediate as opposed to litigate?
Great question.
Let me tell you something. With almost no exceptions, with almost no exceptions, any resolution of a case outside of court is better than any resolution of the case inside of court. If you can come to an agreement between the parties, that is the ultimate resolution. Because let me tell you something, courtrooms are not where justice happens. Courtrooms are where injustice happens. And the best way to keep your case intact and in your control is to keep a judge as far away from it as possible.
Yeah, I remember one of the lawyers at my work told us, he said, you guys all go in thinking that you're going to go into a courtroom and get a just decision, and really what you get is just a decision.
Well, that's true. And of course, it was Ambrose Bierce who in his Devil's Dictionary defined a lawsuit as a mechanism into which the participants enter as pigs and end up as sausage.
Okay, I'm being told it is the very next item, so I'm not sure how much longer this goes on, but it is imminent.
My name is Stephen Thompson. I'm the asset manager for the Lawler family.
Okay. Any questions for Stephen?
The other benefit is going to be those downlights will light the pole, the lower part of the pole, so we'll have a lot less issues where we have
Okay, we're still talking about the billboard.
I have a question for Stephen, but it's probably not relevant.
Yeah, well, it's not shining up. That's the best play. Yeah.
You bet.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, what I really hope happens is that the town council will be able to tell the residents, what happened behind closed doors. Give them some perspective.
Maybe each of these guys got $10,000.
Yeah, maybe. And then the residents, of course.
Mr. Wraithman Blue says, it's not Texas without a one-legged Texan.
Oh.
It is it is interesting to watch all of this unfold. It's been interesting to watch the LDS Church be so stern about what it wanted, didn't care that it violates sort of the law of the land. They're then looking for this extra loophole, which allows, if you can justify it, you to get away with anything. And then to see most of the cities where temples are going, most of the towns or cities where temples are going, they didn't really know what was even happening until it was already done and agreed to. And so they really didn't have any ability to fight it. And as you guys behind the scenes, Rebecca and Landon, as you guys behind the scenes have been making this public knowledge for everyone, including these towns and cities, it's to the point now where the church now has to reframe how it goes through these processes, because it now has to assume that cities might get the heads up earlier. The citizens of the city or the town might get the heads up earlier, and they now have a fighting chance to bring this under control. Somebody suggested in the comments, maybe the church will ask for an even bigger temple now, so that when they give a concession, it allows them to have sort of what they want. And that would be crazy, right? Like a 4-story tall, 5-story tall.
Well, those games, that's ridiculous.
It's like negotiating 101, isn't it? That's not surprising. Would it be? By the way,
everybody's entering a negotiation. It's in the pawn shop business. Whoever sets the bar for where the negotiation's going to be gets to control sort of what direction it heads in.
Who gets to make the first X or O in tic-tac-toe?
Yeah.
If you have that power, you can win every game. By the way, look, I know this is kind of a long shot to the city council people. Is it just me, or do they kind of look like aliens?
Oh, here we go.
I think the invasion has occurred.
The invasion is starting. Everybody go check
And what
out
color did they
channel.
choose for their t-shirts? I ask you.
I don't know. I can hardly see them.
It's on you.
Oh, this shirt, green. I thought you were talking about the council members.
Yes, green.
Oh, green, like a little green man. I see what you're saying.
What's the chances that the BYP's expert is just one more false prophet? I've
sorry,
seen a
I
lot
had to
of
think.
prophets in my day.
I had to think, because I'm dealing with all these parallels that the apologists put forward to the Book of Mormon being true with ancient stuff. I just had to think, okay, so Fairfield, I make the joke about the aliens on the city council. The color of their t-shirt is green. Therefore, the Book of Mormon is true.
Yeah.
I'm in. I believe you. I believe it all.
Okay, thank you. Pass our good wishes to Miss Lawler for us. Okay, we're going to go now to what I said earlier. We're going to go to our discussion items, and the first item we're going to talk about is have kind of a workshop arrangement where we'll take comments from the residents about the mediated settlement that we have with the LDS Church. As you know, we've been working on this since March of this year. There's lots of discussion about that, both online and in person. The council's been involved in numerous meetings associated with this. We've had several meetings with various attorneys, the LDS folks from Salt Lake City, and we were encouraged to go to a. Oh, was that? Oh, okay. There we go. We were encouraged to go to mediation, which we did Monday 2 weeks ago. And then coming out of that, we had a meeting with the council a week ago Monday. And then coming out of that, we came and said that we need to give our residents a chance to chime in on what was discussed. So what in general, we're going to put the pictures up here. In general, what has changed? We were starting with a building that was of great concern, twice the size of this town hall building, about 45,000 square feet or so, 65 foot high, and with a 109-foot spire on top. And comments that I personally made and other people made, it was just too big. It didn't fit in the area. The church was requesting a conditional use permit, which, by the way, every other religious institution in town did that as well. So other people have been through this. So this is nothing new we're doing. But we're looking at the size of the building and such. So as a result, we were encouraged to go to mediation. We had the mediation. It was presided over by a former magistrate, federal magistrate named Jeff Kaplan. The parties, we were in our room, and the LDS folks and their attorney were in another room, so we really never saw each other, except when we walked out. But this mediator walked back and forth between with trying to come to some sort of conclusion. And during the course of that day, he came back with a very new proposal from the LDS folks. And what you're seeing in front of you is what the new building is proposed to be. It's a little less than 30,000 square feet, as opposed to 45,000. The building height at the edges is 35 feet. That area right up where the little, I call it a tower now is, there's another 10 foot up there. So it's not quite 35 feet all around, but most of it's 35 feet within our 35-foot residential code for that area. And then the tower, as I'm calling it, where it says it goes up to 125 feet, it actually goes up to 120 feet. That was one of the things that they agreed to do, is come down to 120. And then there's that, we're not even sure what's on top there. It looks like a lightning rod or something, but we're not sure how high that is. But that takes up some of the 120 feet or so. So that's what we came away with. I signed an agreement, and our mayor pro tem was there. John was with me. And I signed an agreement saying that we signed, and the LDS folks signed, saying that this was a memorandum, non-binding memorandum of settlement, that we would agree to do this. So anyway, that's where we ended up with that. The council met. The council approved that a non-binding memorandum of settlement unanimously. There were 6 of us there at the time. Councilman Ricardo Dory has been spoken to over the phone, and he agrees also with it. He's not able to be here tonight because of a business meeting. But so anyway, that's where we are right now. And that, as things would go forward, what would happen, assuming everything stays in place, is that the LDS folks would come back through the process that they went through before, planning and zoning, just like happened before. They would submit the drawings and all the things related to dark skies and landscaping and traffic and all that will be presented there. They haven't, this was made up during that meeting, so they don't have the details and such on it, other than the physical size. But all that would come back before as a public hearing within planning and zoning. Whatever happens out of planning and zoning, then it would come to the council. Timing on this, we're thinking February, maybe the P&Z meeting would occur if they can get all their work done. And then the council would see it maybe in March or so. And if they don't get it done, it'd be a month later after that. So anyway, so what I'd like to do tonight is give an opportunity to our residents that are here want to comment on this. I'm going to ask that we've got a lot of people here. And I appreciate everybody keep it civil as what we're talking about. The issue is the building and the building size. And I'm going to ask Josh, if you can you kind of time things? We as the council can interact with you on this kind of discussion here. So if there's something specific you want to ask us or ask one of us, please do that. But we are going to try to keep it moving so everybody who wants to comment has an opportunity to do that. So yeah, do it 3 minutes, and then we'll see where we go with that. I won't be very hard and fast on that, but we give everybody an objective to get on that. So again, if you want to come up and speak, please do. Again, identify yourself, your address, and we'd love to hear what you have to say about this proposed settlement that we have with the LDS Church. So who wants to be first?
And I'll just note the lawyers for the church appear to be in the back row, sort of covering up, but I wanted that to be full screen so people can see.
My name's Ben Brown. I live at 717 Mustang Drive. I didn't want to be first, but I will be. Got a question or two. Would you please explain what non-binding means?
That means that we can change it.
Secondly, I look at the details that we have, single story 2-40. Have no idea what that means.
So single story 2-40, we didn't know what that meant either, by the way. But in that center room, or the area where it's 10 feet, a little bit tall, the 10 feet high addition on the roof, inside the building, again, this is 1-story building. Inside there, they have celestial rooms, it's called. And there's special rooms where people go to pray and be close to God. The building that was originally proposed, there were 4 of those rooms in there. And I forget the number, but I thought they each held 30 people. There's 2, and each of them holds 40 people. That's my understanding of that.
Okay.
We're talking endowment rooms, right?
Bring it up is at the last presentation, we were told that the building was a 2-story building when in fact it was a 3-story building. Secondly, we don't have enough details on the plans of this building to know what's inside it. You mentioned celestial rooms. I presume that's, they always put in their temples, that's there. And you say 125 feet to the top of the finial?
It's actually 120 is what
120. There's a question of, is that really 120 feet? Is there anything above that 120 feet?
No, the 120 feet, as they told us, goes all the way to the top. See, there it is, right up, like, it's the top of looks like a lightning rod. That's what the 120 feet is. Okay. And that's from the ground up to there.
Okay, that's from the ground up.
Yeah.
And there's several building wall heights. One of them is 35 feet.
Yes.
There are several others. So I'm not sure how that fits against our ordinance of 35 feet. So I guess when we get some details, at the planning and zoning, maybe we can have more cogent discussion. But
as we get more information, we'll get it out to everybody. If something comes in between now and then.
So I guess the last question, what are you guys expecting out of the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Anybody want to answer that? I mean, from my perspective, is they're going to go through the process. They're going to ask a bunch of questions, all the things that would concern us: landscaping, traffic, dark skies, how lighting is going to be handled here. One of the things about
what if games?
What's that?
What if they deny?
Then it will, just like before. Then we go back to the council. If they deny it, then it requires a simple majority
to hear and deny or accept after that point.
Yes. Yeah. The council would be in the council's position to deal with that then. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ben. Okay. Anyone else wish to come up and? Yes, sir.
I'm Rick Hiddle, 950 Circle in the Woods.
Hi, Rick.
Hey, how are you? Did the church, we went to mediation, typically those are due to conflicts that need to be resolved in one form or another. Did the church threaten to sue? Oh, I'm sorry. Did the church threaten to sue if we didn't meet their requirements?
That was not said this time, but it's always been, it was said directly before multiple times. And our assumption is that eventually, if this is not approved, they would sue.
That they will come after us.
Yes.
All right. So they negotiated down to 125 feet. And I looked at some pictures of Mormon temples online, and it's not a lightning rod. It's a golden dude.
Well, it's not Moroni. No, it's not an angel.
It's not a Moroni.
No, they told us it might be a lightning rod is what it might be.
Okay. They tend to be stark white and brightly lit. Not very attractive, and certainly not in coordination with buildings around. My question, though, and I'll be brief. We negotiated up to 125 feet with them. What did we negotiate? What were our maximum elevations prior to negotiating to 125 feet?
So we went into this like most of the people with the green shirts on. No, 42 feet height of the building and 68 feet height of the top of the spire.
Okay, so we negotiated from 68 feet to 125 feet.
Yeah, it's 120. Yeah,
Okay.
You're correct. It's 120, but I mean, it's still 120.
What's showing on the slide is incorrect.
Yeah, it shows 125 on there. It's 120. Yeah, the one I have is marked up, but it's 120.
Final question.
But yeah, we negotiated down from 174 basically. The big deal from our perspective was the building. The size of the building was just, as I made the comment, it was twice as big as this building. It was humongous. And they came down to a one-story building, which is a significant concession on their part.
Where did we get the 120 feet? Where did we come up with that?
They came up with that. That's what they wanted to do. Yeah.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Who else?
Whoa, the spirit is moving.
Hi, Lisa.
Kentucky Lane.
Yes.
So with the 35-foot on the sides and then it would go up 10 foot. So would the new precedent be 45 feet? Because the precedent now we said was
Well,
22.
yeah, I mean, that's a concern that everybody has is, are we setting a precedent for other places? I mean, from my perspective on that, I understand that completely and that's a concern to me. But the other side of that is there's not really, there's like one other lot in town that somebody could build something on, which is the one next door to this. And we already know who's going there. I don't know what they're going to build, but it's a very small church in Allen right now. And I'd be very surprised if they build a very big building there, to be honest with you, but I don't know for sure.
Future though.
What's that?
But for future, like if they were to come, if someone else were to come.
Right. Well, anybody coming would have to go through the P&Z process, just like
Right.
everybody else did, the CEP process. They would have to do that too. And yeah, but you're right. Yeah, because we have the.
Just asking for clarification.
No, that's a perfectly legitimate question, Lisa. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rick Dunham. I live at 151 Horseshoe Bend.
Hi, Rick.
My position hasn't changed since this meeting we're in back in March or April.
Has or has not?
Has not changed.
Okay.
Okay. I still am maintain our current ordinances or the past precedences, whichever stands,
Mhm.
which I believe are 42 feet and 67 or 68 feet.
68, that's what we told them.
That's where I'm at. I have a question for you all, just to be clear for myself. If this was approved at 125
120.
or 120,
Yeah.
does that become the new precedence? Does that become the new standard? For the next church that comes in, will they be able to build to 120 or seek approval for 125 or 127 or whatever?
They would come in and they could seek approval for whatever they choose to make.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That would be, that's my biggest issue here, is we keep sliding
Mhm.
the marker, and pretty soon we no longer have ordinances that we can enforce.
Mhm.
And I think most of us moved into this community with the understanding of what the ordinances were, and we're changing those rules, and it affects the people that have decided to move in this community. I'll tell you a real quick story. When I built my house in 2011, the building inspector came out to my house at framing stage, climbed up the top of my roof and dropped a measuring tape down my foundation. You know what he measured? 35 feet 9 inches. Is 35 feet 9 inches close to 35 feet? I'd say it's pretty close, right? But is it greater than 35 feet? It is. So guess what I had to do? I had to pay my framers to remove the framing, had to buy new lumber, and I had to pay my framers to reframe my house, my roof. Okay, did I want to do that? No, I didn't want to do that. But that was the requirements. That was the law. I followed the law. Okay, so my point of view is the LDS Church may not like this, and I get it, but they'll get over it just like I did, okay? As long as they follow the law, we'll be just fine. But if not, I stand firm. Not any changes, not an inch, not a nanometer above what we've already established. Thank you.
Okay.
Clark, I think this might be a good time to talk to our LUPA and how this church and really all churches have that in their back pocket, or that they can use that. Would you comment on that, please?
RLUIPA is the federal law that could apply in this case, that prevents municipal ordinances from unduly interfering with the free exercise of religion. And thus far, the case law, that statute was passed in 2000, year 2000. Thus far, the case law is mixed, but this would be a novel case. This would be a new concept as far as the type of claims being made by, in this case, the church. And they have told us that they will sue, and it will be under RLUIPA and possibly Texas statute for the restoration of religious freedom, which is probably even further reaching than RLUIPA in terms of offering protections for religious land use. It's so you're not just dealing with the local law, and in fact, you're dealing with federal and state laws that restrict the application of local laws when it's a religious institution attempting to use its property for religious exercise. There's a very difficult burden of proof that comes into play for municipalities under RLUIPA and the Texas statute. Anytime you're in litigation, both sides face risks. And one risk that the town would face, it isn't just being sued, it's being sued and potentially losing, and having a federal judge order the town to allow the church to go with its original design of 174 feet. That's a potential outcome.
And pay all their legal fees.
And pay their legal fees.
And what's the cost, just estimate, a range of what that would cost?
Billions and billions.
For legal fees?
It's really difficult to predict accurately what that could be. But in some discussions, we've estimated that could be in the neighborhood of multi-million dollars.
Okay, and Julie, where do we get this money to pay for those fees?
The only source that we have currently at this point would be town reserves, general fund town reserves.
And we're thinking that it would be at least, no matter which way the first court decided, we're probably looking at 1 or 2 levels of appeals after that.
Potentially, yes.
Which could be incrementally more legal fees on both sides. And we cannot recover our legal fees if we should win. Is that correct?
That's correct.
This would go, if this goes in the federal way, it would be first taken in court in either Plano or Sherman in the federal court system. Depending upon what happened there, the next step would be to New Orleans. So we'd be paying people to go to New Orleans. And then after New Orleans, then it's the Supreme Court. This could be enormously expensive for our town. Essentially, you certainly use up all our reserves.
Yeah, well, our general fund's around $12 million. $6
million.
$6 million, okay. And the LDS church is worth $275 billion.
Wikipedia.
It's yeah. And so one of the concerns that we all struggled with was, would we be a good steward of the town's money if we went to court with this? You know, sometimes we could win and we could lose, or we could lose and we would really lose, just depending on what happens. That's some of the thought process behind this, just so you would know.
Hi.
I'm Nikki Smith. I'm 1670 Ashcroft. My initial thing is it's still too tall. I felt that conversations I'd had with you and other people, that we all understood that this height needed to come down. My second thing initial is that tower, is that people can go up in that tower. So they can go up there and they'll be looking down in my in-laws' backyard, seeing them in their swimming pool. I mean, is it habitable that they're going to be able to go in there? And how big is that? Is that a 10 by 10 tower? Or is it 100 by 100 tower? Or, I mean,
we don't know the answer to that right now. I do know that it is open in the middle. There's, they're not like stairs going up there. It's open. One of the things that and this is just me talking, but lighting and stuff, instead of being from the outside, there are actually windows in there. If you see that upper part and lower part, those are actually windows. It's glass.
and we're not going to let them light that up, I'd hope.
Well, they have to comply with our dark skies standards. So they've already told us they would do that multiple times. So whatever that is, we'll look at that when we get to that, and we'll bring people in that are very familiar with that. So, but yeah, they could light it from the inside as opposed to the outside, which I think would be a lot more attractive, frankly. But anyway, we'll see where that goes. We don't know the answer to that. Right
well, I think the tower is unoccupied. I think anything above that
mean, if it's occupied, if people can go up.
No,
there,
I don't think it's not occupied.
I
It's
just think
not.
we need to be
really.
very careful because we've been deceived and lied to about this structure.
Right. No, I don't, it's not, I don't, that's never been talked about that it was occupied or occupiable, that there's steps or something to go up in there.
Okay. And I think that the town's been pretty clear that we don't want 120 or 125 feet, whichever one that is,
Mhm.
that's still too tall, that it needs to come down. Obviously they have a right to have their temple, and there is no religious, issue here as far as that. I think the town's been very clear about that, that there's no, we want them to practice their religion as they want, but we don't see the need for 125 feet to do that. And I don't know, it's really erect. So I just think it would be a lot nicer if it could come down in height, and maintain what we have, because you are setting a precedent. You can say, oh, there's that one lot left, but this is residential lots. We have lots where houses can be torn down. It could be my neighborhood where they decide to tear down someone's house and they're going to, create a religion and build something there. So I don't think we can sit there and say, oh, well, there's only one lot left, so why do we have to be concerned about that when you're letting this happen in residentially zoned areas?
Okay.
So I think you do have to look at the precedent.
Good point. Thank you, Nikki. Any comments on that, Julie or Clark, about suppose they go into a church, a religious institution, goes into, there's a lot in River Oaks too. That's an acre. Somebody wanted to build a church there. Could they build a church there? There's no HOA in that neighborhood.
No, I mean, I would say that the precedent isn't necessarily just with respect to a certain height. Because if there's a development, on 20 acres, that's different than a development on an acre or an acre and a half, in terms of, how much space that and what that ends up doing in terms of visually, and whether or not you might judge that to be, out of place. So you would take in a number of factors. So to say that there's an absolute precedent, if it's approved in this case, in terms of height, that's going to always apply everywhere else. I think there's some room for some individual judgment through the CUP process.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Pamela Saylor.
Yeah, Pamela.
Hi, I'm at 199 Newchester. I just first wanted to say thank you.
Talking to Mike.
I just wanted to first say thank you. I know you all spent a lot of time, and I'm certain members of the city also spent a lot of time. So I just wanted to say thank you. That was a lot of work. And I know the stakes are high. So first, just gratitude.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions. How many acres is this particular lot?
8.
8. Okay. And it's in an RE1 zone. Are there any other 8-ish acre lots available anywhere?
Next door to it is 5 acres. That's where the Twin Creeks Church of Christ is scheduled to go.
Okay.
What's that? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yes. Okay.
Now, are these all residential?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any non-residential lots?
Non-residential, you'd be over on this side of town, or
Correct.
along Highway 5.
Correct.
So theoretical, somebody had to buy one of the buildings, like that little brown building up here. If somebody bought that and tore it down or something, I guess, because that's in our CPDD area, not residential area. So they can have different rules as far as building there.
Correct. And then how close to residential homes would, say, the little brown building that you just referred to, how close to a residential community would that be in?
I don't know. It's like a 4-acre lot or 5-acre lot, something like that. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. I'm just curious because I know there've been some discussion about temples have lately been needed to be built in a residential community. And since we have spaces available in town that are close to residential communities, I was just curious from a proximity standpoint, are we talking the other side of the street is now a residential community, and therefore that particular criteria might actually be met, to then follow up with, would this building or even the bigger temple fit within those zoning rules on, say, that property?
In the CPDD, they still process, they have to go through with warrants and major warrants and stuff, and they would have to apply just like they did going through planning and zoning and such. So the same questions would be asked.
Okay, but is that height, just because we've been talking a lot about height, would that height of the original temple be allowed in that space on that part?
I think it would be an issue of negotiation again.
Oh, really?
I'm sure that people would not be happy with that.
Okay, I just was curious about
Yeah, but-
what's allowed, what's
yeah.
not. So thank you for your time and answering my
Thank you, Pam.
Well, and also thank you and Fairview United for all that you've done. You ran a really good grassroots campaign. I learned a lot. I sneaked and looked on the website and saw all the things that you said, and it's just been great. And I appreciate all of you for doing that. Thank you. Yep, all of you.
Yeah,
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
people who couldn't come.
The website, the petitions that you guys
Next
signed,
door.
and I learned a lot. From it.
Thank you. We learned a lot from all of you. Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
fix is so totally in. You can tell from that. He's speaking of her in the past tense and
Sure.
complimenting her excessively.
Gary Carter, 1000 Timber Lane in Fairview.
Mhm.
I appreciate all the hard work and thought you guys are putting into this. I don't think it's time to back down. I really don't. This temple and Austin's temple look very similar to Tucson. In Tucson, they held their ground and they came down to a dome rather than a spire in the middle of that building. And I think we ought to hold to our ordinances to actually hold them to the 68 feet that they've set precedent for with their temple, with their current worship, place of worship. My fear is that though we don't have a lot of empty lots out there for sale that you're thinking about, there's plenty of large lots or aggregates of lots that could be collected up. And this could set a precedent that we really, really don't want to have when those lots actually get sold and somebody
I just
decides to put
noticed the
another
first time their lawyers
worship
are
center
talking
together
to each other as
and build something
going on.
like this. So I think the only thing, well, two things that I'm concerned with is that height. I think you can hold them to something that's lower than that, closer to the 68 feet. All they have to do is drop that dome down to the building and they're there. The size is great. I think getting that concession was fantastic. I want to see what they propose for lighting because the lighting that they proposed before would be horrendous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
One of the things, Gary, that they talked about, or we talked about was, there was a temple, I believe in Paris, that was 45 feet, met all the standards, but it didn't have a steeple on it.
Mhm.
And they graciously went on and did that. But the thing was, they didn't have a law in France like we have in the United States with our LUPA. So they weren't really being good friends or being good neighbors. They did that because they really had to in order to get the temple built. But here in the United States, we have, and I think if anything, we need to do something about this law. This law is not a very good law. This is our LUPA law. So that's why they're sticking to their guns with what they're doing.
I understand. I see our LUPA as a threat that has no substance when you look at what they're fighting here. We are not against the Mormon religion.
Yeah. They're using it as I heard someone say, using it as a sword instead of a shield.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what's happening.
So that's a conversation to let our
I think we just need to keep
U.S. Congressman Keith Self know about that. Thanks, Gary. Yes, sir. You've been waiting.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Sheehan. I live at 1309 Bethpage Court. I just want to say thank you for bringing us to this discussion tonight. When we last left in public session, there were a lot greater threats that were out there concerning lawsuits and a great deal of expense to the people of the town. What you've done is at least bring us to the next stage in what continues to be a negotiation. And again, we have the planning and zoning process still to go through, which will fill out a lot of the detail, Mayor, that you say we don't really have yet concerning this building. In terms of how the neighbors feel, I think it's probably fair to say that there are still an awful lot of people in this room and in this town who feel this is too large a building for that particular piece of land. We'd like to see it on a different piece of land. But we also recognize, as you've mentioned, sir, the threat that's out there and the laws that apply and the laws that could face it could bring us an enormous bill to pay in terms of legal expenses. So I just want to say thank you for going into this mediation process. It was a proper thing to do. You've all learned a great deal about not only the federal law that applies here, but also the way that you have the burden as leaders of this community to try to find a middle ground, a reasonable outcome that can please no one, because that's what happens when you come to a final agreement on a contentious point. So I just want to say thank you again for bringing us to this point and at least getting us into the next stage of being able to consider what should be built on that property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Steve Fordori. Live at 190 Horseshoe Bend with my wife, and we've been a resident for about 20 years. I also just wanted to thank the council for attending the mediation, all the ones that participated in that. I know it's just a part of the process that needs to be done, so thank you. But my personal opinion on that is I hope that everyone here is not looking at it as a negotiation. It should not be a negotiation. We have our ordinances and they should be followed. We've already given enough to a number of the churches around, and I think at this point we're high enough. And of course, the LDS meeting house already has the highest steeple. So, and also I look at it as two options. And I think this has been proposed once, building in a commercial area, right? I think that's been thrown out there to them and they rejected that. Is that true? Has that been thrown out there as an option?
We have talked about that, helping them relocate into, we have some vacant land up by the airport, our commercial area. They have been, of all the things they've most firm on is they're going to build a temple on that piece of property.
So they rejected that, that was an option we proposed. We're trying.
We've talked about it numerous times, yes.
Okay, so a commercial building on residential land, they need to follow the current precedents, in my opinion. And agreeing to the mediation agreement, this not only sets new residential building precedents, it also sets a precedent for the P&Z committee and the town council that now we can be bullied into proposals applied by other groups in the future. So something to think about. I've also been told that there's been a number of cups, I'm not sure if it's on this land or not, that have been denied because they didn't meet the ordinances. I'm sure that's correct. That's good for our case because we're not discriminating against LDS in that case. You know, we follow the rules and the other groups have accepted that. One thing, I'm not sure if we thought about this, any group having a cup denied in the past, and there were multiple of them, can now come back and sue us for discrimination because their cup was denied. Now the town's approving this one. Something to think about there. Those cases would not be in our favor because what do we have to fall back on?
I'd respond on that. We'll give them some more time.
Are we talking about other churches or?
Yeah, I could say other, I don't know what was proposed on that land, but if somebody came back with a smaller plan than what's being proposed now, which I'm probably sure that.
What's been proposed in previous
Yeah, they would
councils?
say, oh, why did you deny ours?
Commercial development.
I was told it maybe it was on this land.
No, there was, yeah, absolutely on that land. There was commercial office condos have been proposed there. There's been Montessori schools proposed there. This McKinney School District at one time looked at putting a school building there. That didn't ever come to fruition. But the other ones, the ones that were businesses, were discouraged from even coming before P&Z because they would probably not be accepted.
But we don't have any official rejections?
Not in those cases, no.
Okay, but there may be some out there. So if there were, they can come back, right? And say, hey, why didn't you?
There haven't been any denials.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have that on our side then.
No.
As far as churches are concerned.
Yeah, the issue is churches.
Okay, so that's not an issue then.
Merlupa doesn't protect commercial, it protects religious.
Okay.
We were just talking about churches. There have been no denial.
Okay. So in my opinion, though, the LDS case can be won. And if by chance we could be sued by other groups for some reason or another in the past, we would lose those because we're not fall back on, but
So
it doesn't matter.
What would you think we would win? Why do you think we would win?
I think just based on the case, things are in our favor. I mean, I was going to get to it. We talked about our LUPA. It states that you can't have it can't be discriminated against religious. LDS already has a meeting house on site, so they can't use that. But it also states that they still need to follow the local building ordinances. It's there, it's stated there.
It is.
And that's the only thing we're asking them to follow. So that is, definitely good for our case.
Okay.
And then just to some of the things you were saying, it looks like it's coming down to money again, of course, which a lot of things do.
Well, the issue is what it would cost the town. And then if we lose, then they build the big building.
Yeah, exactly. So just to finish, this is the LDS playbook. Pick on the poor small towns. Normal. It's been happening all around the country.
That is happening all around the country. You're correct.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, the city council is giving every evidence that they're not happy about it, but these are the facts, Jack, and this is the way it's going to have to go.
Alicia Keeney at 171 Horseshoe Bend. Many of you are on record stating that you wouldn't approve the temple with a structure height taller than 68 feet. I hope I'm wrong, but it appears your word carries very little weight. We have fought for 8 months against this $260 billion bully whose predatory behavior towards small towns has been despicable. I thought y'all were going to be the heroes, not only for the residents of Fairview, but for others who have been trampled on by the LDS. Y'all are so fearful about a lawsuit. I say bring it. Let's see what happens when the largest single landowner in this country, the richest religion in the world, sues a small town in Texas of 10,000 mostly senior citizens. How do you think this is going to be perceived by not only this country, but the world? I wonder if the optics will encourage more whistleblowers to come forward or embolden more sexual abuse victims to speak their truth. I can't imagine a court in this country believing that they're substantially burdened when there is a barely used temple 30 minutes away, and the only reason they haven't broke ground in Fairview is because they're hell-bent on substantially burdening the residents of this small town. Our LUPA was never meant for giving religious institutions supremacy over secular entities, and those wielding it like a sword need to be stopped.
Thank you, Alicia.
Best comment of the night so far.
Hi there.
Hi.
Marlo Ballard. I live at 130 Horseshoe Bend in Bridal Gate. And I have to say I'm much happier overall with this. I want to thank you for working so hard on achieving this. This building is so close to being right. But man, there's a section there close to the top that just looks really, really disproportionate, not a place. If we could just remove that section up there and bring that dome down, boy, we'd have a winner chicken dinner, okay? I mean, LDS would make a lot of people in this town really, really happy if they would just take that dome down. They have the beautiful temple they want. They would have the goodwill of the people of Fairview. We're so close. So, you know, I see us as kind of as the road not taken. You know, we as a town, we have to decide which road we want to travel on. Are we going to take the road that is well-traveled and more likely to be predictable and know where we're going? Or, are we going to take that road that's less traveled and a little bit unnerving and not really know where we're going? That's a decision that we have to make as a town, all of us collectively. I'm still trying to decide how I feel about this. One day I feel one way, the next day I feel the other, but I tell you, I am very afraid of precedent. I just don't feel like it's right for one powerful entity to bully their way and make this precedent our new precedent. It just feels so wrong to me. And that's what I'm really struggling with. Why can't they just be the good neighbor and just build that beautiful building, but just, just try to be a neighbor to us. That would be the most neighborly thing that they could do. I don't know, I'm rambling, but I just wanted to state how I felt about all of this. And like I said, I think we're all just trying to digest it and figure out which road we want to travel down.
That's our hope too. And I hope that, we have 3 representatives of LDS Church here now. I hope they hear this and you take that back to Salt Lake City and you hear the citizens here, we want you, but it's just way out of the heights is just too much. But we're just tied right now. So I agree with you.
I like your characterization of we're almost there.
We're almost there. Honestly, that tall tower looks kind of ridiculous. It would look so much better with the dome.
I agree.
Down. I mean, it really would. Architecturally, it would look so much better.
I agree.
Thank you.
This lady is right. They are almost there. In fact, they've arrived.
Gretchen Wild, 501 Lakewood. Was there any discussion, or when it is resubmitted, it will require hours of operation? I know it will require the lighting, but does it also require the hours of operation and that type of thing as well?
What do you mean by they have hours of operation? Yes.
Because one of the things that was discussed early on, and there's been a lot of talk about like the architecture, but the hours of operation in some ways also seems to dictate the lighting. And so, if it's open until 9 o'clock, then there were some, if you do all the research of the other ones across the country, if it's open until 9 o'clock, then it gets to have the lighting on for at least an hour after that. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's just not been discussed right now. And I think that's huge because in the daylight, this may not be as obtrusive as it is when you have it then at night at 10 o'clock and it's well lit right there in that property when we all come off of 75 and the first thing we see is the beautiful darkness and then we're glad we're home. Mm-hmm. And if this is open until 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever, I don't know those hours, but I think I just maybe am speaking to the LDS representation that I think that's a big thing too, is how late are the lights on and the lighting as it relates to the hours of operation that would need to be covered in the submission.
I assure you that they are aware that dark skies is a big deal for us. Yeah. And exactly what's going to happen, we don't know yet, but that'd be part of the process when they bring it to P&Z.
We're the LDS Church. We'll leave the light on.
Seems like our lupa would be harder to use to justify heavy lighting, wouldn't it? That seems sort of.
Hi, I'm RG Smith. There was some rhetoric about lighting and a burning flame, so I'm just saying.
I kind of view this as a process. Yorba Linda, California, went through this with their town council and P&Z 3 times before the LDS finally submitted a design that met their zoning laws. I think that we can do this again. We can do the same thing. We just need to be strong and say, these are our precedents for the residential area. This is what you can meet. There are other temples in the United States that actually meet our zoning laws, but they haven't presented that. They presented an intermittent one. ask them to come back with one that meets our zoning laws. That's all I ask.
Thank you, Margie.
And go Lions.
All right. Anyone else wish to state your opinion? Please come up. Yes,
That's
sir.
the church.
Come back again.
Rick Hiddle again,
Yeah,
950
Rick.
Circle in the Woods. I always raise my kids to have the belief that sometimes you just punch a bully in the nose. And I really feel that this church feels that they are not subject to our guidelines. And I would hope that the council would consider going back to a second mediation and let them have their square footage, but have them stick to our height requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
One other thing, would the council entertain the citizens funding a defense fund?
So we have a legal defense fund out there right now,
can the
and
citizens-
several of our citizens, but honestly, most of the money's coming from other places, coming from outside of Fairview, which is kind of interesting.
Okay, can the citizens of Fairview also contribute to that?
Absolutely. Go on our website. It's right up there. It's really easy.
Okay, thank you.
Look for zoning defense fund.
Apparently this gentleman doesn't know there's not going to be any litigation.
$100 to go. We'll have enough money.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Need to understand, this is not a cheap legal defense. This is going to be several $1 million or more. And if we lose, double it. Our reserves are $5 to $6 million right now. You will eat all of that up very quickly. So
Which
it's another thing to consider.
Which affects when you eat up all our reserves. What's that affect?
Well, we have to cut services.
Our credit rating and
Our credit rating
everything
goes
we do
immediately
costs
goes
more.
down.
Yeah.
Immediately negatively affected.
Yeah.
And our tax rates are set by formula by the state. How many in here would vote for a tax increase? Nobody.
A 10-cent tax increase.
10-cent tax increase.
Yeah, about a 30% tax increase.
That's at least, if we lose $3 million, that's what we would have to do, and it's just not doable.
And the worst thing is we get the original building.
We get the original building at 65 feet and 174 feet. So there's a lot of economics that can take into consideration in this.
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Catherine Ponder.
Yes, it is.
At 970 Foxdale.
Hi, neighbor.
Hello. So how tall was this original proposal, just as a reminder?
The original was 174 feet. The building itself was 65 feet high and then a 109-foot spire on top of that.
Okay, so they came down in the height of the,
It went from 174 feet to 120 feet.
okay. And it looks like the top of the building is 45, and then above that to get
Most of it, well, the very top is 45. The
then-
smaller part is 35.
the central spire part is
Yeah.
the 120. Okay.
Well, no, it's from the ground up, it's 120. Yeah.
So the difference between 45 and 120 is that whole central part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm not great with math. So I just found this interesting because I got an alert today about Cody, Wyoming, and I'm trying to put on my old journalism hat and be neutral, where the city lost, LDS won, and there was a bird that landed on power lines there that disrupted service for electricity, and everybody blamed the LDS Temple construction. And in the course of the article, it says people blamed the controversial 101-foot LDS Temple. 101, and they lost. We're at 120, and we didn't lose yet. So from my perspective, I think we're afraid of the financial implications, and that's the biggest thing. So what I'm hearing. So just to put that in perspective, 101, and they lost.
Right.
120, just to keep those numbers in mind. If it came down a bit, I think it would help everyone.
We win.
Well,
20, we win. 101, they lost.
Right.
It's just winning or losing.
Right.
And I'm all for, I mean,
Right.
I agree with everybody in this room, but there are a lot of extenuating circumstances. There's a lot of money, millions. And if you lose, the town's bankrupt,
Yeah.
And you still got to look at a 65-foot tall building
Yeah.
with 174-foot.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and again, it's just a matter of, if we were 100% sure we'd win, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
But
Well, even if we win, we're out the money, right? We're out the money providing it. But I guess,
pay their legal fees too, not just ours. But if they win, they don't pay our legal fees.
Mhm.
Not this, and again, it's like Clark says, you're dealing with this
yeah.
law
Mhm.
that kind of makes it a little bit uneven playing field compared to just a normal residential person coming.
Mhm. I guess the biggest thing I can say is there seems to be no consistency in what a height has to be from the LDS temples.
Yeah, we noticed that, yes.
My takeaway to the LDS representatives is something I've always lived my life by, and I've taught my kids, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
And I will say that Cody is still fighting to the Supreme Court. The residents are suing the
Magnus.
town. The church is joined with the residents. The residents are paying hundreds and thousands of dollars out of their own pocket to fight their own town and the church. 101 feet.
We're talking about the same thing right now that we talked about on August 6th.
Say that again?
We're talking about the same things right now that we were talking about on August 6th.
Yeah.
Are we going to get sued? What can we do with the 174 tall spire? They're going to sue us if we don't. It's the exact same situation we're in right now. And I'm sitting back listening. It's almost like the council believes this is the end of negotiations, the end of mediation.
Mm-hmm.
I submit to you, we're only in the second inning of this ballgame. Planning and zoning and August 6th was the first inning. You guys stood up and said no. We've gone through mediation. They've put something on the table. You can say no again.
That's why it's called,
it's
called non-binding.
And again, we don't know what they're going to put on the table other than what you put up here.
Yeah.
And they'll probably comport to what's up here. But we all know they can put a building on that site that meets our ordinances. All we have to do is hold their feet to the fire. I think you're due more than one inning in this ballgame. I think there may be 2 or 3 more innings before somebody drops a lawsuit. So I'd ask you, as we go through this process, when we get to planning and zoning, this is mild, what you're hearing tonight. You're hearing our feelings. Once we see specifics, we'll come back with more information and more concrete things to say no. But again, this is only the second inning of this ballgame.
I think we all agree with you on that this is a process. They know that we're going to go through the whole, it goes to P&Z, it goes to the council. I agree with you. And again, I hope that you can send this message back to Salt Lake City that, it's way too high.
That's why I started with the first question. Tell me what non-binding means.
The Clever Church Council member there redefines his complaint and then agrees with it. But unfortunately, this gentleman is, I think, incorrect. This game has been called on account of darkness.
Stevie and I live at 438 Long Cove Drive. I want to congratulate you all on your good effort to try to bring this to a happy ending and the difficulty that it involves. But we need to defend ourselves against this Goliath. We are a small town, granted, and they are a huge, huge entity, and they can smother us in an instant. But is that who we are? Is that what we're going to let them do? We're going to let them smother us? And that's what they're doing. They're playing us for weaklings. So we have established this defense fund, and I'm surprised you're not aware of it because it was publicized. And I challenge everybody in this room to make a substantial, not a paltry, but a substantial donation to it. And when you ask the question, Rich, about who's ready to pay higher taxes, I am. I am.
Well, it would have to go to a vote, so you may have your.
Yes.
Your choice on that.
And I think the residents of Fairview deserve that opportunity to vote on that, because we need to show our resolve. And by establishing this defense fund and funding it to the best of our ability, I think we show our resolve. There's a number of LDS members that are residents and taxpayers of Fairview. And I respect them. I respect the ones I grew up with 80 years ago. And I did business with in Salt Lake City 30, 40 years ago. First-class people. But I would respect them more, the local people, if they too donated to this fund, because a number of them have said they were against it. So, yes, we probably can't collect $5 or $6 billion. But I think if we plead our case around the country, there's people in North Carolina that write us a check. And as you said, Mayor, some of the donations are coming from outside of Fairview. And if we publicize this enough where the giant is stepping on us, I think we'll get that sympathy vote, if you will. I think there's an opportunity there for us to take advantage of it. And we couldn't roll over. We have rules. They need to live by them. We do. They need to. And if they don't like it, we'll go to court. I think we can win. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. Yeah. All right. Anyone else wish to come? Yes.
I just want to really quick say another thing. Like so many other people, I appreciate what y'all have done. I appreciate y'all going to mediation. I know that that was time and taxing. And I guess speaking to the representatives of the LDS, as we have said many times, we want them to have their temple. I have someone here that I love dearly, and she is a member of the church, and she is very, very active, and she wants this temple, and I want her to have a temple. I just want it to meet kind of what we have as precedent. And I think the biggest thing that scares me is precedent is a huge, huge thing, because then another church can come in and, like Gary and Gretchen were saying, the house I grew up on Lakewood Drive, where my sister now lives, 10 acres, where I learned, I got my first horse. I learned to ride my horse there. And that was where we boarded them before we moved, before our house was built, like so many things. And what if a church comes and wants to build at the end of Lakewood Drive? All my childhood, and you would have 120-foot steeple. And that just, it would just kind of destroy the feeling of a residential neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of my biggest fears. So
We understand that.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Lisa Fordori, and I live at 190 Horseshoe Bend. My husband spoke earlier, and again, I want to thank you guys for all the work you've done. I know it's not easy. I've done mediation. I've worked with lawyers. It can be fun sometimes and sometimes not so much. So thank you guys for all your personal time that you've had to spend on this. As you know, a lot of us have also spent a lot of personal time. So I just have some thoughts, and some of this came from folks who've written to us, who have given money to Go Send Me Fund. A lot of those were from out of state as well. A lot of those folks were LDS members. So here's some things they were asking. And if anyone's seen stuff I posted online, I'm pretty boring. I say the same thing every time. So I'm going to kind of start with my thoughts on this. Why would you buy RE1 land knowing that you would need to sue to build a commercial sized building? Is that really intent? The attorneys, everyone, out of the gate. And I had someone say this to me at the petition signing. He said, I don't think it's in good faith.
You don't think it's what?
He said, I don't think it's in good faith.
Okay.
You bought something not in good faith. Pretty much every law of the land, everything they're going to ask you, was it done in good faith? Was this? They have a building there already. They know the laws, they know the ordinances, and they chose and are still choosing to not follow them. I'll go on to say that the LDS leadership purchased the land knowing that the ordinances, and they know exactly that their commercial, the building they are proposing is commercial. Why would they not propose a residential church? I mean, they have one there already. They know that they already enjoy. We've already given them above and beyond, and this is how they repay our small town.
Basically, yeah.
One has to ask themselves, what's the spirit of the law if you're going to sue our town? The U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division letter dated March 19th, 2024 states, to be clear, and this is them, not me saying to be clear, our LUPA does not provide a blanket exemption from local zoning or landmarking laws. Rather, it contains a number of safeguards to prevent discriminatory, unreasonable, or unjustifiably burdensome regulations from hindering religious exercise. Again, they have a building there now. We would never prohibit someone or their religion, and we've never said we would. Basically, you've also stated, which I did not realize, that you have proposed giving them another site that's commercial. Does that mean they could build this building tomorrow if they chose that site?
We have not offered them a specific site, no.
You have not. Have you
Definitely
offered
not.
them something commercial?
No, we
No.
told them they could build in our commercial area and probably have less problems with zoning because you can put big buildings over on this side of town.
Which is what I keep saying all along.
Yes, but-
Why, if you want to build a commercial building, why don't you buy commercial? And like you said, we have land available, right?
There's land available if they wanted to find it. Yes.
And basically, yes, if the lighting, all those types of things that everyone's mentioned and the last P and Z were ripped apart, right? If they fix those things, they could build now, correct?
If they went through that zoning process, yes.
Okay, so there is a solution here. It's not that we're bad people, which is what, like, we've, things online that people have said, it's not very complimentary to those who don't live here. We have people from other towns and states attacking us that are LDS. And once they see that if they had commercial, it would be fine here, they kind of back off. I just feel like maybe that story needs to get out more, that if they bought commercial land, we would not be here today.
Probably true.
Thank you guys again for all of your personal time and your family's personal time, especially as we're at the holidays, for everything you've done. I just wish LDS would want to be good neighbors. Hopefully, maybe our holiday wish will come true, and maybe they will be.
Maybe.
Thank you,
That
guys.
chance, sister.
Thank you.
Yes, and if the aliens had actually invaded today as predicted, we wouldn't be having this meeting.
You're right.
Dang on this issue. That's up to them if they wish to. That we're not asking anybody to say anything specific. So
yeah,
I don't know if that's up to them if they wish to speak.
Going once, going twice.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, we greatly appreciate everyone taking the time to come out tonight, letting us know your feelings. Some of the things that you've said, we've talked about over and over and over and over and over again. You probably see me in the press a lot. I will tell you, I've had conversations with newspapers and TV stations in Salt Lake City and have made very similar comments to what you've made tonight, knowing that folks up there would see what the issue is, because we're getting coverage all over the place, which is kind of interesting to me, but this is a big deal. So
Literally.
there's no action for the council to take tonight. We do have other business items that we need to go through, so we're going to go forward with that, and we'll see where we go with this, okay? So again, thank you all for coming tonight.
And there's your ball game.
Whew. Now that was
Did I
very
call
hard.
it or did I call it? Was that city council there to listen or to persuade?
All they could do is listen at this point. So, and I
they're
did get
persuading.
some, what?
They took every chance they could to try and persuade the audience that the decision that they have reached is right.
Well, I had some information from the ground there when the church reps were asked if they wanted to speak. They kind of, yeah, so they conferred quietly as lawyers do and then said no. There's nothing left to say, right, from the church's side.
Freaking quizzlings.
Yeah, I found that very hard to watch. If anybody wonders why we care about temple building in all of these towns, there are real people there like that, real people in all of these towns, and this is what is happening to them. They can't even comprehend what's happening to them as far as this monster that has descended on their town. And they're real people with real lives in a real town that they love and care about. And that's why it matters. It's so hard to watch.
There wasn't a single Mormon who stood up in that meeting
no need
and advocated in a positive way for the temple being built. It was neutral people who understood that there was a cost at stake, and there were people in disagreement that wanted them to fight it. The Mormons showed up in droves for the last one, and they didn't care. Didn't care.
It's over. It's done. Their God took care of it. What do you think, Landon?
That's the tough part of this whole thing is, you know, the city council has to represent everyone in the city, including the LDS. They have to be transparent, which means they have to get up there and say, look, here, this is what's going to happen to us if we try to fight this. We could be paying our entire, you know, we could bankrupt the entire city. They have to represent everyone and the city and be transparent, where the church gets to just sit back. They don't have to pay any legal bills if they don't want to. And because their members do whatever they're told, the church can just sit back and not reveal anything that they're going to do, where the city has to lay out basically, here's what everyone's thinking, here's how everyone's seeing it, here's the reaction. So they're really at a disadvantage in a negotiation here, because they have to lay their cards on the table to everybody, where the church gets to hold them close.
Yeah, I'll tell you something, okay? You know what the definition of a good deal is? Or at least a fair deal. A fair deal is where nobody's happy with it. Okay.
That's true.
You'll hear that all the
Solomon
time.
and the babies. No, you're not wrong.
Right. Usually from judges who just screwed both sides. Because, yeah, both sides get screwed in court. So if you go to court, yeah, that's a fair deal where both sides are not happy with the bargain. And I was also going to say what the one city council person who I still think was just trying to persuade everybody. By the way, somebody said, oh, and I can't remember. I put the comment up here. What was it? It was about someone who disagreed with me. Yes, I put that comment up. Jennifer May says, I disagree, RFM. I think the council is on the side of the townspeople. I don't think they were trying to persuade the residents. What I'm saying is that they're doing both. They are on the side of the townspeople. They realize that the church is a bunch of bullies, but they're also realize they're over a barrel, and it's in the best interest of the town, and therefore the townspeople to strike this deal and just move on. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's what my argument is. And if you disagree with it, that's great.
I think right off, and all night long they said, we agree with every comment you guys are making about this horrible LDS church, but this is the best move we could make.
Exactly. That's what I think they were saying. And I can't, the other thing I was going to say, he said it, I wanted to say it too, but I'll repeat it. The solution to all of this is with the RLUPA statute. And the legislature, the federal legislature, either has to get rid of it or amend it, because this is a classic example of how a statute with good intentions, Boston Temple Spire, But overall, it was framed within good intentions, right? To prevent governments from forbidding minority religions from building structures in their city. Okay? That's basically what it is. It's to prevent government discrimination against religious buildings. And I think we would all agree with that. That's a good thing. The problem is the way it's written is it does allow the church to use this statute as a sword to get their way instead of a shield, which is supposed to protect them. And that's what needs to be amended in the RLUIPA statute. But this does signify, it shows, it exhibits, okay, the classic axiom that you cannot give rights to one set of people. As a government, you cannot give rights to one set of people without taking rights away from another set of people. It is a zero-sum game. And that's what happens when you give the rights to the churches. You're taking them away from the people as represented in their governments. And the way it's going, this may have been, look, these guys who pass these laws, we all know they're not that bright. Most of them failed upward into the legislature, okay? They don't even know what they're writing and voting on, much less the implications of what lie down the road and how this can be used against them. And now we know. Now we know how it can be used against them because the LDS Church is showing us how. And so it should be revamped and amended, I think. And that's where the solution lies.
Well, and I'll go one step farther. I believe this is by the design of the LDS Church. Right around the time of Boston is where Orrin Hatch, also Senator Smith, also Bennett, all LDS senators proposed the RLUIPA. And Oaks himself, Dallin Oaks, argued in support of this at the time. I believe they passed this looking forward. I really do. And they know what they have. We have recordings of the Curtin McConkie lawyers in Fairview saying, I have lots of different clients. I wish I had RLUIPA for all my commercial clients. We can get anything built, right? This is what they said. They know what they have. They can, like you said, a sword, cut down any kind of opposition. And of course, there is that clause that some of them are quoting where it says RLUIPA cannot infringe on this and that. That's gone to court a couple times, and it's been decided either way. There are no guarantees how that is interpreted. The whole law is too loose, and that's the problem there. So the town council knows these things. They're in a very tough spot there.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I ask myself, if this was me and I had to, if I had to spend everything that I saved, my entire life savings, my 401k, and give it to this lawsuit, would I be willing to do it?
Yep.
And, as much as I dislike the church's bullying tactics and the way it is, I could not do that. And that's what this town council is doing, is they're saying we can't go that far. That's just suicidal, basically, to do that. And so that's what the town council is trying to say is, we can't go that far. That being said, I mean, there's a way to strengthen the city council's position. And that is, if they had $5 million sitting in an account right now, they might say, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So the question is, the city set up a fund. Everyone who's saying, hey, you should fight it, well, put $1,000 in the fund. Let's see. It takes a lot of $1,000 to make up $5 million.
Just FYI, it actually doesn't. If 10,000 people gave $500,
that's right.
That's $5 million. And the lady did make a point, which is if this went a little further and got a little bit of notoriety, the town's already acknowledged. By the way, kudos to all of you out there who, outside of Fairview, stood up for Fairview because they acknowledged that the majority of their defense fund came from you. Kudos to you.
Yeah.
But if this gains some traction, imagine, number one, some of these other towns, post-Mormons, and members of the church who just are disgruntled about this behavior. I don't think it would take much for 10,000 people to give $100 or 10,000 people to give $200. I don't think a few $1 million is that crazy when you spread it out that thin.
Yeah. And I think they have to be realistic. They have to look at some of these other towns and what they're having to do out of their own pockets. Like in Cody, right? Cody residents out of their own pockets are suing their own town who has joined together with the church. Heber, same scenario. The LDS Church has petitioned to be able to, no, they actually have joined in Heber. That's right. It's Vegas where they've petitioned. This is what happens. Eventually, the residents on their own have to sue their own town in order to stop this. And then the church, because they have a stake in it, joins with the town. So we're talking hundreds and thousands of dollars, hour after hour of work and legal legwork. People that we know personally in Vegas, in Heber, in Cody, they're doing this because they care that much. So there's an investment. You're right, Bill, from people outside of the community, inside of the community. It's what it's going to take. But a couple people made some comments I thought were interesting where they did talk, like you said, Bill, kind of about just more notoriety. Maybe the plan of the temple, the look of the temple, that might be interesting to some news sources and just what's happening next. So we're not going to stop talking about it, not one bit. And we'll see what the next phase is. I understand why everyone feels the way they do, from the council members, why they did what they did, the residents, why they feel the way they do. And again, that's why it's so hard to watch. This is the real result of this corporation of the church.
By the way, we will stop talking about it the moment the town throws in the last towel. Like the moment it says, that's it, it's past everything, go build it the way we've agreed. And at that point, it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
But eventually, somebody has to stand up, or a bunch of little guys have to band together to stand up. And I think the post-Mormon and disgruntled believer segment of folks have done, I don't want to say they've done their part. There was no part they owed anyone, but they went above and beyond. And I just, again, kudos to everybody who helped that fund to grow.
I know mine is an unpopular opinion, but I'll go ahead and put it out there. Taking into consideration the different factors in this case, this resolution, to me, I think, is a no-brainer. Yeah. It's not even close. It's not even, well, maybe or maybe not. Obviously, this is the play. This is the only play.
And by the way, you're not saying the LDS Church played fair. You're agreeing they're bullies and they're using their $265 billion as a weapon.
Well, I would expect them to. I would be disappointed in them if they didn't.
Yeah, we've grown used to it. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, what do you think, guys? Is that it seems like it does it?
I think we could talk another hour about it, but I think we've done that and more. You had to bring that back.
Where did the diagram come from, Rebecca? Because what I was understanding from the mayor was there is no diagram. They've just agreed on basic dimensions at this point.
This is what they gave the town council to look at. This and another picture that we showed on the newscast last night. And even what they had up on the screen, it had 125 feet written, crossed out. So it was kind of like a worksheet. They were kind of showing this and that. So there was a little bit of confusion there. So there aren't really professional looking renderings that I've seen yet. Those will be interesting to see. But again, people in the chat kept saying, why doesn't somebody just stand up and say, Emperor's got no clothes, what this looks like? That might get some media attention, which is terrible. But
is there another temple that looks like this? Is there another one?
Yeah. Austin looks like that. Even
and of course,
Cody
you're just
sort
talking
of
about the
looks like
Austin
that.
diagram, because it hasn't even been.
Austin's not built yet.
Oh, sorry.
Ground,
yeah,
right?
it's just a diagram. Yeah. But again, they're just moving toward this. And I think it's the prefab kind of thing where they can throw those forms up and then they just lob a big steeple up on top of it. But again, aesthetically,
I think that's the best bet at this point, is that the members come out and say, this looks ridiculous.
Did you say members?
Yes, the members point out the member of the temple.
Members to point out the member and say, church, could we have something different? This is very true. And we have so many active members that send us information and send support to Fairview. Really, let's throw it out there. Do you guys like this design? Is there something that might work a little better, more aesthetic?
And Rebecca, you had some pictures of some temples that were this same design that had smaller, and they looked a lot more proportional and a lot better aesthetically.
I did.
That looks like basically
the one. Yeah, Laura
it
Lee
looks
Hall
like the
sent me
same
one.
thing.
It was just beautiful. There are some that are beautiful buildings.
It's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Is that the Austin?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's the Austin, Texas rendering.
So again, that rendering is very rough, right?
Right.
And so maybe this looks a little different, but I still say the tower is disproportional. The tower.
It is weird. It's especially if it's really
right.
not used for something. And
Yeah.
it seems like the church is trying to convey that we do need it. It is used for something, but other than if somebody that, on a Sunday is going for the second anointing, or the church is meeting in the Holy of Holies, which is the top little 6x6 space, and washing their feet all, bumped up against each other. It doesn't, I don't ever know of a way in which the temple would be used in this way, unless temple presidency meets there with an office or something.
No, and these towers are not like that. A lot of them aren't even technically attached. There's kind of an argument back and forth on that. So they're not the thing that you would go inside. Maybe a maintenance kind of a tunnel, or kind of
may
a
be the
ladder,
celestial room ceiling. It may be that you look up and you see the lights.
Yeah, Texans for some reason are still a little bit concerned about tall towers with belfries.
Yeah, as they should be. That's exactly right. So yeah, I don't know. I think it may still have to do with the steeple doctrine. Once you so firmly plant yourself on that side that God wants it jacked to Jesus, you can't back down, I guess.
Especially in Austin.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens next. I guess maybe what happens next.
Toledo. I'm sorry.
It'd be worse.
Oh, go ahead. What is that?
Bill just brought up something.
I don't know what this is. This is
the reorganized
Madhav Dham Temple in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
So that's Indian for or should say it's Punjabi. It's Punjabi for the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I thought it was Indian for uncircumcised, but okay.
Everything looks uncircumcised to you, Bill. What is that? You even said that to me once.
All right, TMI. We better end now. So,
all right.
Anyway, I think we've done it. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there. I never thought we'd all be watching these council meetings as much as we do. I mean, and I have to laugh because I told RFM and Bill, I'm like, "Ooh, there's a council meeting. Do you want to stream it?" And in the past, I feel like people would go, "What are you talking about?" But they're like, "Yes." So we definitely have kind of sort of shifted our point of view as far as what these meetings mean and what they are. So yeah, please comment and let us know. What do you guys think about this scenario? And just keep tuned to the Mormon Newscast and to Mormonish, to Mormon Discussions. We podcast about temples all over those platforms because the next thing I think will just be back and forth and then to the P&Z board in the spring. So we'll see.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess have a great night, everyone.
That's right. Thank you. Thanks, Landon. Thanks, RFM. Thanks, Bill.
Night, everybody.
Take it easy, you guys.
Dieter Uchtdorf here. That's a wrap for this week's flight of the Mormon Newscast. We appreciate you flying first class with us and sharing this time with us. Keep the conversation going and stay informed on all things Mormonism. Until next week, wishing you peace and joy. See you next Monday at 6 p.m. on the Mormon Newscast. Doubt your doubts.